Hello ladies, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Louise. A very warm welcome to a channel that has no niche, but I do discuss menopause and perimenopause quite a lot on this channel. And so if you're perimenopausal or menopausal, today's episode may possibly be a very important one for you to listen to, because in today's episode, I'm going to share all the details of a recent consult I had with Menopause Taylor. Now, Menopause Taylor, also known as Menopause Barbie, has a channel right here on YouTube, and she's a retired gynecologist. She's also got a law degree and an MBA, so she's a very smart lady. She has quite a quirky style on YouTube, and she's exactly like that when you do the consult with her. So I'm a South African, as you can hear by my accent, and so for me, the consult was quite expensive. It is $300 for a one-off or first-time 1-hour consult with her. So you can go check out her website. It's menopausetaylor.me. It has taken me, when did I first come across her channel? About 3 years ago. And I'd made a video talking about using the birth control pills for perimenopausal symptoms. And I'd learned about that fact from her channel. And she was the first person I'd ever heard talk about the fact that you can use birth control pills to alleviate symptoms of perimenopause. And then it turns out, after I did research later, that she's not the only one saying it. There are other doctors on YouTube saying the very same thing. And when I did more Google research, I found out that it's the same ingredients in birth control pills and HRT. So birth control pills, the hormonal birth control pill, contains ethinyl estradiol and some form of progestin, and so does HRT. So synthetic HRT also contains the same thing. Bioidenticals simply mean that the molecule is identical to how a human molecule looks, but it doesn't mean that synthetic molecules are any less effective. Of course, they're formulated to be effective and to act in the human body. So it's not to say that ethinyl estradiol is any better or worse than a bioidentical estradiol. So that is one thing that she has educated me on, something I pretty much assumed, but it's good to know. So I'd watched her channel. I've learned a lot from her. I've watched, I would say, 90% of all of her videos just to try and learn as much as I can, because if you've followed along on any of my hormonal journey videos, you will know that I've been a bit sort of trial and error-ish in trying to alleviate my perimenopausal symptoms. I am quite young for perimenopause and perimenopausal symptoms. However, that's not to say that if you're young, you cannot experience them. It's the fluctuation in hormone levels. I'm reading books on it. An excellent book I'm reading right now is The Menopause Manifesto by Jen. I don't know if it's pronounced Gunter or Gunter. I'll put a picture on the screen here of that book. It's also a very good book if you're going through perimenopause or menopause. Menopause Taylor herself has written a book on menopause. So there's a lot of resources. But as Menopause Taylor says in her videos, if you want something from her that's tailored to you, to your stage, to your health, to wherever you are in your journey, it is best to book a consult with her. And so I bit the bullet. So like I was saying, being a South African, our currency, when we translate it to dollars, it was expensive for me. So $300, I'm assuming for an American, is not that expensive. But for me, the cost was a lot. To put it into context, it was about 5,500 rands to go and see a gynecologist or an endocrinologist here. The maximum you would pay would be up to about 2,000 rand. So she's more than double the price for a 1-hour consult if I were to go and see a top specialist here. However, the reason I bit the bullet and did it is because I could, in theory, waste time, effort, and money going from specialist to specialist, doctor to doctor, and still not getting it right. Because let's face it, a lot of doctors, even gynecologists, are not very clued up on menopause and specifically perimenopause. So menopause itself has got far more of a, okay, we know what to do, because obviously the lady is no longer having a period. Her hormones are pretty much flatlined. I mean, she still makes a bit, but estrogen is almost zero, progesterone almost zero. Her testosterone may be going down, but they kind of know from nothing where they can bump it up to alleviate her symptoms. But in perimenopause, it's a whole different animal because you are still making estrogen. It's just that it could be 1 month you're ovulating, 1 month you're not. So it's in fits and spurts. And for me, especially this last year, the symptoms have been a lot worse. Joint aches and pains, night sweats, hot flushes, general fatigue, a feeling of depression, like a dark black cloud over my mood. Excuse me. And so I really wanted this consult for me to answer questions that I wanted to know. You know, I've watched so many of her videos, I can almost parrot fashion tell you what she would say. Probably I'd get it right 80% of the time. But what I needed to know from her was, what direction do I take? What is the best way forward for me? And so I knew in the consult I could tell her what I was on, which I did. And the cool thing about a consult with her is that you fill out a long, it's like 17 online pages, questionnaires that she sends to you before the consult. So you go onto her website, you book, then you get an email saying, okay, you've obviously got to pay. And then you get an email saying, with the whole questionnaire, saying you can fill it out, which you do. You have to fill it out, is it 5 days or something like that before your consult? I'd have to double check, but it's a few days before the consult. You have to fill out the questionnaire so that she's then got time to read through it, and then she creates a document just for you. Now, obviously, a lot of the info in the document is cut and paste, and then she highlights stuff that's relevant to you, and then she'll put in red comments or notes that are specific to you. Sorry, let me have a sip of water. So I was able to send her my bone density scan, which I'd had done recently, my mammogram, my thyroid test results, my vitamin D3 test results, anything that's relevant to your health. She asks about your diet, your lifestyle, whether you're a smoker, a whole range of things. How many pregnancies you had? Did you breastfeed? Very detailed questionnaire. And then at the end, you can also ask specific questions that may not be covered by the questionnaire. And then she sent me 100 and something plus page document. So she says on her, in the email or on the website, you must read the whole document before you consult with her. So I did. What's nice is this document is a summary of a lot of the information that is on her channel. So I'm assuming a lot of this information is also in her book. I don't have her book because I watch on YouTube and I absorb so much of the information on YouTube. But there's diet, lifestyle, nutrition, and then there's all the HRT information. And then just to show you here, here's the in red notes that are specific to me. So in her notes, actually, this is a good one to read out to you because we talked a lot about using the hormonal birth control pill for me to alleviate symptoms of perimenopause. We spoke about that in the consult. And here in red, she said, do not assume that a history of intolerance to birth control earlier in your life will repeat itself now. Now, I didn't have an intolerance earlier in my life. Maybe she assumed I did because I seemed like I didn't want to use birth control. I've never had a problem with it, oral birth control. I was put on it by my mom at the age of 16. I just went on it. I was happy to stay on it. And I used it as and when I needed it for protection. Thereafter, went off it, got pregnant like that. Never had a problem with it. And I always enjoyed the fact that the periods were light. I didn't have any premenstrual symptoms. Now, I can't say whether I felt optimal on it. I was too young. I didn't know, never thought about it. But I didn't have an intolerance. But what she's saying is that some women do have a bad experience. So I understand that she's just saying to me, don't rule out using birth control pills. I get it. And she's saying that before you had your own hormones in addition to those in the birth control. Now you don't. And there are dozens of different kinds of birth control ingredients. So we talked a lot about this in the consult. So if the idea appeals to you, do not let a past history of intolerance limit your willingness to give them a try. So it wasn't a past intolerance that was blocking me from the idea. It was my recent experience, which I'd made a video about, saying, that I tried the birth control pill recently in June 2023 to alleviate symptoms of perimenopause. And what I found was that I felt fine, but the hot flushes by week 3 were still, or the night sweats, let's say, which is a hot flush at night. The night sweats were not going away by week 3. And so I got frustrated and I stopped. And as a commenter had said under that video, yes, I should have stayed on it for up to 3 months. And whilst I understood that, what I was sort of trying to say to that commenter, although they got a bit heated with me by saying I was spreading false information, which I don't feel like I was. What I was just saying is that when I went for hormonal tests, whilst I was on the birth control pill, my own hormones didn't show up. So I was just wondering what had happened to them and why was I not experiencing symptomatic relief. I do understand I should have maybe tried for longer. What I did do then in July 2023 is go back onto these bioidentical, this is the estro gel, which I can show you there, the estro gel, and the progesterone capsules. Now these two products I get from a doctor who's very pro bioidentical hormones. Now, when I discussed this with Menopause Taylor, so in the consult, she said I must ask her whatever I want to ask her. And of course I said, look, I'm on this, feeling good on this, feeling great. So then her first question was, is this a pharmaceutical product or is it a compounded product? And I said, well, it's compounded because at the back here it says, I don't know if you can see that, compounded by Centra Pharmacy. So now this is a compounding pharmacy here in South Africa. You can get this from doctors. You can get it in pharmacies if they order it in. So I would say it's probably a good compounded product. And they also do the progesterone capsules there, 50 milligrams. So it's not a high dose. So they do these compounded products. It's not a pharmaceutical product like Bayer or Merck or Pfizer or one of those big companies. And so as Menopause Taylor said, the problem with compounded products is that there's no regulation. So unlike the pharmaceutical companies that have to stick to a high standard, a regulated standard, you've got to know that the dose that they say is the dose that's in there. It's going to work. It's not going to fail you. Who knows with these compounded products, no matter how beautifully they're packaged, no matter how many doctors prescribe them, from batch to batch, is it a constant dose? Is what they say is in here? And so what she said to me is that I may not actually be meeting my long-term goals by using this compounded product. And so during the consult, she kept steering me back towards the idea of using birth control pills. So hormonal, oral, birth control pills. Now I have a pack here that I was going to try, Yasmin Plus. So I'm just showing you what I have, but I didn't try it because I then switched to this. Now she's saying that these are a good option because they do contain the same ingredients as traditional synthetic HRT, but in higher dosages. And what she was saying is that if you want something reliable, guaranteed ingredients, controlled, something that's easy as well, something that any doctor can and will prescribe to you, because what you have to just say to the doctor is, I really, really, really don't want to get pregnant at this time in my life. And she was suggesting that you ask for, or I ask for, a higher dose birth control pill because I'm young, I'm 44. And so when you're younger, according to Menopause Taylor, and what she said to me is that when you're younger, you need higher dosages of estrogen because that's what your body is used to. And she kept steering me towards birth control as opposed to a compounded bioidentical formulation because we know what's in the birth control pill. We don't know how they formulated this. So I said to her, yes, but I feel better on that. I feel good on this. And she says, that may be so. You might feel great. She's not saying that it's not the right amount in here, but how do we know? And as she was saying, if you want to protect your bones, so prevent osteoporosis, if you want to protect your brain, as in preventing Alzheimer's, and you want to protect your heart, is it worth the risk of using a product that is a hit and miss? Which is food for thought for me. I must say, it's given me pause because I will say on the birth control pill, I have used it in the past during my perimenopause and I felt fine, but my boyfriend had said that maybe the birth control pill has made me a little bit moody. It's made me not myself. Now, I don't want to let his opinion sway me because maybe it's just the change in hormones and things would have settled if I had stuck to it. And also, that could just be his perception from girlfriends in the past. I've always felt fine on the birth control pill. And so she has actually redirected my thinking to an option that, and I understand why, what she is saying, because I asked her about this. I said, but what about the progesterone component of the birth control pill? Because she often says in her videos that it's the progesterone part of HRT or birth control that often causes some yucky side effects. It could be bloating, it could be a little bit of acne, it could be moodiness, it could be dull thinking. And so I thought, well, if she, who's an expert in this, she's a menopause specialist, if she is saying that progesterone causes yucky side effects, can I get away with not using progesterone by using a Mirena, which is an IUD that contains progesterone that stays local to your uterus? So you use the Mirena to deliver progesterone to your uterus to prevent uterine cancer, and that is the only reason we need progesterone in menopause. And I can explain more on that in another video if you would like. So if you'd like that, just leave a comment. So I was trying to get away from using the progesterone component. So I kept asking her, what about a uterine ablation? That's where you get rid of the lining of your uterus so it doesn't even grow. What about using a Mirena? And she kept saying, but hold on. You can do all those things, but you're probably going to need the birth control pill as well. And I kept saying, but why would I need it? If I'm using a Mirena, I can just add in the estrogen. And then I understood what the rub was and why she kept trying to steer me towards birth control pills is because, or as an option, she's not telling me what to do, but she's suggesting it as an option, is because when you're in perimenopause, not in menopause, your dosage needs of estrogen are much higher. So what I enjoyed about her was that she always has her props. She's exactly like she is on her channel. And she had a little dropper bottle. She had a much bigger plunger coffee press bottle. She had a 1.5 liter drinking water bottle and then a big bucket. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what she said and how she explained it. So she said to me, when you are younger, in your 20s, you've got this big bucket of estrogen. That's what your body's making. That's what you're used to at that time. Then she says, in perimenopause, and she held up the 1.5 liter bottle of drinking water. She says, now you're getting about this much estrogen. Obviously, it ebbs and flows, fluctuates in perimenopause. But in perimenopause, you're getting a bit less. It's declining, but you've still got a nice amount of estrogen. And then she's saying in birth control pills, then she held up the coffee plunger, you get birth control pills that are the higher dosage, the medium dosage, and then the low dose birth control pills. And she says, and then the HRT, and she held up the little dropper bottle. She says, that is the dosage of what's in the HRT formulations. So traditional HRT, synthetic HRT, and my mother was on it, those little pills, have got a very low dosage of estrogen and progesterone. And in HRT, you can also get estrogen only. But as she was saying, if I am taking care of the progesterone by putting in a Mirena and an IUD, who is going to prescribe me high dosages of estrogen to fill in that gap? And now I hear her. I understand where she's coming from because most doctors do not prescribe for perimenopause. It's going to be very hard to find a doctor that is trained in this, open-minded enough in this. Most doctors have been scared by the Women's Health Initiative study. And I think if you've watched anything about perimenopause and menopause on YouTube, you would have heard about the Women's Health Initiative, where there was this very small, scary link to breast cancer and also to blood clots. And so in the world of medicine, the thinking has been now to do the lower dosages of HRT, and even in birth control now with the slight increased risk of blood clots and vein thrombosis. They are terrified of higher dosages. So even in birth control pills nowadays, what's considered a high dose is way, way lower than the original birth control pills, which contained like 150 back in the old days micrograms of ethinyl estradiol. Nowadays, high dose is considered 35 micrograms. And so, as Menopause Taylor was saying, for me to meet my higher estrogen needs, I am going to have to consider a birth control pill, because where else am I going to get that amount of estrogen? Now, having said that, I could get it met by this. I mean, this is estradiol only. Each 50-gram container contains 100 milligrams of estradiol. Each dispenser pump contains 2 milligrams estradiol, okay? And so I could get my estrogen from this. And my body is responding to this. So I know it is working, it's containing something. But how accurate the dosaging in this is, I don't know. I've done blood tests on this. My estrogen levels are nice and high on this. My breasts are responding because they are feeling tender. They feel sometimes like they are heavy, swollen water balloons. As I've said in a previous video, and maybe it's TMI, but I'm no longer experiencing any dryness, vaginal dryness. So this is making my down, I don't want to say down there, but it's YouTube as well. So no more vaginal dryness, and it feels healthy down there. So I know that this is working, but again, I don't know that it's a reliable dose. Also, when you're pumping sometimes half a pump, which is probably too little anyway, how accurate am I being? The other negative about this is you've got to rub it into your skin every single day. There's a risk of transferring this to children, pets, if you're touching door handles. I'm sure it's very little transfer, but still there is that risk. There's also how long do you let it dry for? If it's winter, it's cold, you've got to sit there with this stuff drying on your skin in the morning. You can't shower afterwards, so you've got to make sure you shower before you apply it. If you sleep in late, now you're rubbing it in a bit later in the day, although I'm sure that's not a big deal. You go to gym, are you sweating it back out? So there's a few small things that make the dosing a little bit unreliable, plus the fact that it's bioidentical. Do we know that compounding pharmacy has got strict standards or not? So it is a concern. I understand what she's saying. And I think it's something that she has impressed upon me, is that unless I can find a pharmaceutical type of estradiol cream and a doctor here that's willing to prescribe it, I may be stuck not meeting my estrogen needs. So what she was saying to me is that if I want to try the oral birth control pills, she's saying don't let the progesterone part of the pill put me off, because there are so many different progestins. There's levonorgestrel, I can't even pronounce all of them, norethindrone. I can put on the screen here a list of different progestins that are in different birth control pills. So now with hormonal birth control pills, you get different dosages of estrogen and different dosages and types of progestins. Now it would appear that it's the progestin component that would create negative side effects. And so she was saying that I have the luxury and the option of trial and error, so trying quite a few brands of birth control pills to find what she calls my nirvana, because I can, for ease, and I understand what she's saying, for the ease of use, because I'm fit and healthy, I'm a non-smoker, I'm not overweight, I fit the category of woman for whom the oral contraceptive pill is good. I fit the lady that can take it. So I could actually solve all my problems with one pill, all my perimenopausal problems with one pill. I could get a high dose of estrogen. I decrease my risk of uterine cancer because of the progestin component. It's easy to get hold of. I can go to any pharmacy. It's quite cost effective, and I can just be on it right up until I'm 55. So if I find a pill, an oral hormonal birth control pill that works for me and makes me feel great, then like she was saying, it's like a one-stop easy solution. No need to fuss, no need to insert a Mirena, no need to try and balance estrogen and progesterone with two different bioidenticals. It's all done for me in one pill, and it's consistent. And so I can skip the period part. So you can actually never have a period. I can do a period once every 3 months, once a year, never again. So it's totally safe to skip the period part, because the progestin in the birth control pill is keeping the uterine lining nice and thin. So I think it's an option I will explore again, but I really wanted to share with you her advice and why she told me what she told me. It's not so much that the birth control pill is any better than any other method of delivery. So you get the patches, birth control birth control patches. You get the birth control vaginal rings. So they've also got estrogen and progesterone, or estrogen and progesterone in the ring or the patch. But as she said, there's only a few brands. And again, where are you going to get high dosages of the estrogen that you need when you are younger? It's not like you are older and already menopausal. Because another thing I was discussing with her was Premarin. This is another interesting point. It's a little bit of a side note, but it does apply to what we're talking about. I'd listened to one of her videos, and Premarin, which is pregnant mare urine, if you didn't know, it was one of the, I think it was the original hormone replacement therapy pill that they had formulated for women. So it's made from horse urine, and it contains a mix of estrogens, but it does contain estradiol, but it also contains an estrogen called equilin. And it has been shown, I would love to know more about this, but it has been shown that equilin is one of the better estrogens to protect against Alzheimer's. So I said to her, can she just tell me more about this? And I said, well, why can't I use Premarin, or should I consider Premarin? But again, she says the problem is that it's a HRT product. So what doctor is going to prescribe me Premarin at a high enough dose for now? So she said, she told me all the different dosages of Premarin, and then she showed me like that coffee plunger thing. And she said the highest dose of Premarin that you can get would mimic a middle of the range dose of estrogen in the birth control pill category. So maybe I could use it, but she was saying that could be an option for when I'm menopausal. I could go on to Premarin if I feel like it's going to benefit my brain. And she said, which I thought was very interesting, is that if you meet any 90-year-olds today that are so sharp, they're focused, their brain is like on fire, they can remember things. She said it's probably those were the ladies who were on Premarin, because back in the day, that's what doctors prescribed. There was just oh, you're menopausal, take this, Premarin. There it was. And so I thought that was interesting. And it's something I think every woman should know about. Would you like me to make a whole video on just the Premarin thing? It's very interesting. So I asked her, well, what about the other horse estrogens that are in Premarin? Are there any negatives to putting horse estrogens into our bodies? And she said, no, Premarin's very safe. She said, I mean, why are we worrying about that? We drink cow's milk. Okay, it's not the same thing, but I hear her. It is safe. It's been prescribed for years and years and years. And all these older ladies who used to take it are showing great mental clarity. So I thought that was interesting. It's something to think about, something for you to research. I don't know enough about Premarin. Like intuitively, it's like, why would we be putting in horse estrogens that were never part of our estrogen makeup? And yet it was discovered that equilin somehow, it actually fits into our brain receptors really well, and it actually helps us regenerate neurons. So there you go. Okay, so that's Premarin. But now back to the predicament of when you are young and going through perimenopause and you need high dosages of estrogen. Because doctors are so afraid now of prescribing high dosages of any hormones for women because of the link to breast cancer and all the worry and the concern, which has actually been found to be untrue. But like she said, I'm going to have to work the system. So if I'm lucky enough, I could, and I find a doctor that can prescribe me anything I want. She said, great. Then you can do it any which way you want. You can use the Mirena and get him to prescribe you estrogen in high enough doses. Fantastic. However, I think for most women, and she's right, the workaround is to use the hormonal birth control pill if you are a suitable candidate. So you're a non-smoker, you healthy enough, fit enough. So the risk of blood clots is very, very, very low for me. And the birth control pill does offer some advantages. And for me, the advantage is that it is easy to get hold of. It's like a one-stop shop. And so that's why I wanted to share all this information with you so that you can start to decide how you are going to manage your perimenopausal symptoms if they are getting bad for you. And I also wanted to share with you the possible dangers with using compounded products. Now, I'd shared my bone density scan with Menopause Taylor, and she had a look at it. My bone density is good except for one area. I think it was one of the neck bones. One of the bones in the neck was showing a bit of a decline. And she said, who knows if that has happened in the last year or two where your estrogen levels have been declining. And she's saying loss of bone is a sign of not enough estrogen. And do you want a chance using this and you're not getting the right amount? Also, if your cholesterol levels are getting higher and higher, your estrogen levels may not be enough, because actually estrogen helps keep your cholesterol in check. Did you know? Didn't know that either. So there are markers that we can look at to see if our estrogen needs are being met. And so one of the things she suggested is that I do take my cholesterol measurements, and then I can go on the birth control pill and I can see if my cholesterol remains stable or improves. So that is a way to tell if I'm getting enough estrogen, which is an interesting way, because she's saying just to test the estrogen in your blood. Look, it's not a bad way, but she's saying you're going to be testing and testing and testing and wasting your time, because you actually need to see whether it's effective in doing the things it should be doing in your body. And the bone density scan is one of the good ways. So a bone density scan, it's expensive, but it's something you wouldn't need to do every year. You could do it every 2 years if you're on an estrogen replacement therapy, and just to check to see if you're losing bone. And if you are, you know for sure you need to do something to halt that. And I appreciate that, because for me, loss of bone, protecting my brain, and preventing heart attack, those things are important to me. And from everything I read, and she's not the only doctor that says this, it's the loss of estrogen that causes osteoporosis, heart attack, and Alzheimer's. Not that you will get them, but the loss of estrogen is definitely linked to them. And I would like to prevent that. So I hear her. She's saying don't lose sight of the big picture of getting enough estrogen to prevent these diseases, just because I'm worried about not having a few yucky side effects from progesterone, which I could maybe alleviate by finding a birth control pill with a progestin that actually works nicely for me. So I hope that explains it, and I hope that it clarifies everything she taught me. It's hard to describe the whole session in a YouTube video, and it's also tailored to me. So if you're somebody who is not a candidate for birth control, this video may not make sense to you, or not make sense, but this video may not apply to you. But then the takeaway for you is that if you are in perimenopause and you want to now bridge the gap in hormones, so you're losing your own hormones, and you want something to alleviate your symptoms and bridge that gap, you may need to find a specialist or a doctor that's willing to prescribe higher dosages of estrogen, and that may be a challenge. And so I think the takeaway for me is that it's actually modern medicine and the fear that is doing a disservice to women, because surely in my mind at least, it should be our choice. If we want to replace the estrogen that we are losing and we want to do it in perimenopause so that we can alleviate symptoms, why don't they just prescribe it to us? Why don't they give us the option? Why don't they say, just like with my thyroid, and she's right, my thyroid is low functioning, I can easily get thyroid medication. In fact, they're giving it to me. They're telling me to take it. But now that my estrogen is slowly declining, in order to get enough estrogen, I either need to find a doctor that's, all big on the bioidenticals, or in mainstream medicine, where am I going to find somebody who would prescribe higher dosages? Now, I just want to, before I wrap up, share a little story she told me about her own self. She went into menopause at the age of 34 because she had a hysterectomy and they removed her ovaries. So she was immediately sent into an early menopause. She had endometriosis, I think, something like that. So she, being a doctor, she said, I'm a gynecologist, I'm a doctor, I can prescribe my own estrogen. So she didn't need progesterone because she's got no uterus. She said at that time of her being 34, she was on a dosage of estrogen 8 times higher than what's in HRT. Now, that should just tell you something. She says because she was young and she went into an early menopause, she needed higher dosages. She is now 60, I'm going to say 64, I think she said. She says currently she is still on dosages of estrogen way higher than HRT. And she says that if you go into an early menopause, you actually need higher dosages. I'm not too sure why. I didn't actually ask her why, but she was saying that for women who do have an early menopause, whether surgical or natural or otherwise, or someone like me who's having symptoms early, we need the higher dosages of estrogen. And so to conclude, and what she has impressed upon me is that instead of me worrying about the progesterone and the yucky side effects, as she says, side effects are just side effects, but they are not long-term health consequences. So yes, I can do trial and error, look for a method, whether it's birth control or whatever, that's going to give me the estrogen that I need. So what she's saying is that I need to focus on getting enough estrogen for now to bridge the gap to meet my needs because I am younger. And so the workaround that she thinks is going to be easiest is birth control pills. It's not the only solution. If I find a doctor that is willing and happy to prescribe me different things, if a doctor's willing to listen to me and have this whole conversation, she says, then go for it. You can try any option you want. But the key is to get enough estrogen, enough to meet my body's needs and all my disease prevention needs as well. And so I'm very glad that I had the consult with her because it refocused me on the right thing, which is getting enough estrogen rather than trying to avoid just a few yucky side effects, which no one wants them. And I understand we don't want to feel bloated, moody, grumpy, hungry, puffy, whatever progesterone does, dull thinking. We don't want that. I get it. And already in my mind, I'm thinking, so I've got to do trial and error, pill brand, pill brand, pill brand. But as she was saying, what I need to do to find my nirvana is that I need to pick a pill brand. And I asked her, well, how do I pick a brand? What brand do I pick? How do I choose? She says, don't worry about the brand. I need to decide if I'm going to start at a high dose and work my way down if it's not working for me, or start at the low dose birth control pills and work my way up. So I said, high dose, high dose. We may as well start high and then go low because I don't want to miss out on giving my body the estrogen it needs. So I said, can she recommend a pill to start with? She said, no, she can't recommend a brand because she's not all about selling a brand or pushing a brand. What she said to me, I need to do is go to the doctor, the gynae, whoever, and say, I want a birth control pill that contains 35 micrograms of estrogen. And that is the highest dosage that I can find that's available in South Africa or anywhere really. It seems that even the 50 micrograms are no longer available. I don't see them. So even today, we are limited in how much estrogen is in the pill. So she said, go and ask for a pill that contains 35 micrograms. And then test out whether that brand works for me. And then maybe, and she says, you must stick to something for 2 months because you have no way of knowing in a few weeks whether it's working or not working and whether things would have settled. You need to give yourself and your body time to adjust to the new pill, the new regime, whatever it is. So don't just jump around. And then if something is still not quite working, you change one thing only. So it could be that I go from a 35 microgram pill with a certain kind of progestin, and then I change to a 35 microgram estrogen pill with a different progestin. Does that make sense? So not to change every variable all the time. I hope that helps. I hope you learned a lot from my sharing my consult with Menopause Taylor. Was it worth the money? I would say it was. It's given me a plan of action to know where to go, and it's helped me focus on the big picture. I'm keeping the important thing instead of thinking about how to avoid progesterone. So it has helped me a lot. There's always the option of doing follow-up consultations. Unfortunately for me, it's very expensive. So who knows? I may need a follow-up one day, and she is there available. So now she's got all my stuff on file. And it's something that I think you could consider, especially if you're getting frustrated and you're not getting anywhere with a gynecologist or a doctor. And the last point, sorry, I just have to add this in before I forget and before I go. She said, in general, an endocrinologist is not the best specialist to go to for sex hormones. She said a gynecologist is far better. Best bet is to go to a gynecologist who does specialize in menopause. Most of them do births and younger women, but at least they have training in female sex hormones, whereas endocrinologists in general will specialize in other hormones like diabetes, thyroid, and other conditions. So there you go. If you were wondering who to go to for your menopause, especially here in South Africa, possibly gynecologists are your best bet. So I hope that this was helpful. If you are menopausal or perimenopausal, I hope it shed some light for you on what to do. And if you have any questions, please do leave them in the comment section below. If you have any experiences you'd like to share of your own with birth control pills, with hormone replacement therapy, anything that's worked for you, I think it would be really helpful for all of us ladies here to just share our experiences, because I'm sure, like me, you just want the best health outcome possible. We all want to feel good. We all want to prevent diseases, and we all want to know what's safe and what's in our best interests. And then, of course, I will link to Menopause Taylor's website and to her videos down below. And I really sincerely thank you for watching. Thank you for spending some time with me. I always aim to be helpful. I know that my channel has no set niche, but you are not one-dimensional. You have many interests, as do I, as do we all. And my aim with this channel is to just be a normal voice of reason in a world that is going crazy on social media. I know that there is a lot of information overwhelm. I know that there are a lot of conflicting ideas. Even in this space, you can get one doctor on YouTube saying one thing, another doctor saying another thing. And it's hard to know who to trust. But I just felt after watching all of her videos, even though her style is quirky, she knows her stuff. And I'm not saying that what she is saying is right for everyone. I feel like I have to quickly do a disclaimer here. Of course, any information in this video is not intended to diagnose or treat you. It's not for medical advice for you. I'm just sharing the consult and the advice that was given to me. It's just advice that is for me, but I share it in the hopes that you will learn something and take your own journey and your own research further. I mean, I don't know. I'm not an expert, but I think she has had years of experience. She is a gynecologist. She's been a menopausal woman herself since she was 34. So I would say she has enough knowledge that I can really be guided by her. And I hope that what I've shared of her knowledge here today was helpful for you and has given you food for thought. And what I hope it does is that it encourages you to do your own research, to listen, to learn, and to discover what works for you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next video. Please consider subscribing if you don't mind. That's the last thing I'd ask of you. Thank you so much. Bye. Bye.